Hi, I'm Bill Corcoran Jr. This is the On the Stacks podcast.
Oh yeah, whoa, look, they can never keep me down, I'm going, and if I ever fail, just know I'll go again. I never quit, cause I know that every loss may lead to another win. I'm going up.
So I love the ability to do 10 different things. The perfect day to me starts in a suit and ends in work boots, or vice versa. You know, I could never say to you, I want to be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company and do that every day. And I could never say, I want to, run a tow truck every day. I love both of those things. I love the negotiating. I love being in the boardroom. I love that aspect of the mental game. But I also love turning wrenches and getting dirty and accomplishing something with your hands.
Today, I'm chatting with Max Peters, entrepreneur, attorney, and owner of Maximilian Ultra Premium Cigars. This episode is brought to you by the Pest Rangers. Finding insects in your home can be a real pest. I know I felt that way when I discovered termites living rent-free in my house. But thanks to the team at the Pest Rangers, I'm no longer bugging out over this issue. So if any creepy crawlers are cramping your style, there's no ifs, ands, or bugs about it. You gotta call the Pest Rangers. For more information on how to rid your home from unwanted pests, call the Pest Rangers today at 570-826-1114 or visit them online at thepestrangers.com. This episode is brought to you by Burn, the fitness company behind the Today Show approved Burn board. If I'm being honest, working out can be a real chore, especially as a new dad in desperate need of sleep and cardio. Burn is founded by NEPA native Jimmy T. Martin, and his Burn board offers a low-impact core and cardio experience unlike anything I've done before. They have hundreds of on-demand workouts that are great for beginners, seasoned athletes, and out-of-shape podcast hosts who love supporting small businesses. My wife and I use it pretty frequently throughout the week, and it's honestly a great way to burn a ton of calories without burning a ton of cash. Not to mention, it's a great tool for skiers, runners, wrestlers, and hockey players. Jimmy is offering all On the Stacks listeners 15% off when they use the code STACKS15. Visit theburn.com today to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15 at checkout. Again, that's theburn, THEBRRN.com to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15. It's time to get on board today with Burn. This episode is brought to you by Blue Door Financial. Blue Door Financial will help you save money and reduce taxes to live a fuller financial life. To learn more, visit Blue Door Financial online at BLUdoorfinancial.com. That's BLUdoorfinancial.com. What's up, podcast? Episode 126 of the On the Stacks podcast here in the Blue Door studio. Max Peters.
Hi, Bill.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited to have you here.
Me too. It's been, I feel like a long time in the making. I was an OG of On the Stacks before there was the podcast.
That's right.
So I take great pride in that.
Yeah. So for a lot of people that may not know or remember the history of On the Stacks, before this thing became a podcast, it was just the photos that we did sitting on the stacks, and you, yes, as you said, you were one of the OG guests.
Yes. On the stacks. I still have the pictures.
Yeah.
And do people know that this is like your business, like the print shop, like that you're in the warehouse, and like they know that that's what's going on here? I just think you're Bill Corcoran, the great On the Stacks guy.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's kind of like a mix of the two at this point.
Where the name comes from.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. I think a lot of people forget, and I tell the story every now and again, but yeah, it's been a wild ride, man. And we were trying to, when you were here, when we were taking the photos with Darren, we were trying to figure out how long ago it was that you were here, and it's
got to be like 3, 4, definitely over 3 years. I would say probably 4 years.
It's crazy, right? Yeah. So, yeah, it'd be a different cigar packaging then.
Everything has changed a little bit, packaging and marketing wise, but the cigars have remained the same quality, and the cigar wrappers, the bands on the cigars, are the same, and that's because they're made here.
That's right.
So I think you deserve a little plug for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah,
we could talk about that more later and how that all came about, but we're very proud of them.
Yeah, thank you. So, all right, so attorney, entrepreneur, cigar aficionado, of course. Mm-hmm. Where does the entrepreneurial journey for you start?
It's, I would say it starts about 11, 12 years old, my grandfather, who we'll get into more, the former mayor of Scranton, was friends with a guy who owned a big junkyard in Scranton, and he used to go hang out there on Saturdays and have coffee with him. And if he was watching me, I would go with him, and I got to go to this junkyard and get a taste of what happened there and blue collar work, and I totally fell in love with anything trucks, machinery, cars, scrap metal. Just started spending my weekends there. Weekends turned into my summers. When I wasn't in school, I was there, and I learned sort of that basic principle of buying things, selling things, and just kind of fell in love with doing it based around like blue collar kinds of things, buying trucks, selling trucks, scrap metal, finding things to buy that had value in it that other people didn't necessarily think would be value, and all the things that went with that, towing cars and driving tractor trailers and all that. So I think that was probably what started my desire to maybe not necessarily go right into the obvious professions. I kind of liked how that business had sort of found their own unique way, and I think from that point forward, I was always interested in like, how can you make, there's something so valuable about earning a dollar that like didn't exist before you made something or produced something, or just not, and not to discount people who work for a salary, who punch in and punch out, but when you create that dollar by building something, and it goes for artists as well, making something, buying something, fixing it up, and then selling it. Like that, to me, a dollar earned that way is so much more valuable to me than $20 earned just for showing up somewhere,
On the Stacks will be back in a flash after a word from our sponsor.
I spent my entire career fighting for victims, initially as a prosecutor and now as a litigator. And whether it's victims of an auto or truck accident, or medical malpractice, or tragically victims of sexual assault, my focus has always been, and is always, to get our clients and their families back to what we call their new normal. At our firm, we go to great lengths and use all the resources available to us to get our clients the answers they need and really the compensation they deserve. It's a responsibility I take really seriously, and I fight every single day making sure our clients get justice.
And now we're back on the Stacks. Yeah, and that's a big debate nowadays, I feel like, because like it's, there's a lot of, and like you said, not to shit on the people who just, come and put in their regular 40 hours, but it's a different type of person.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like somebody who just punches the clock and say works for somebody versus somebody like you who, your cigar brand, for example, like you created from scratch.
Yes. Yeah. And honestly, I don't mean, I think it sometimes comes across like you're trying to put down the next generation, that they don't work, that you constantly hear that, like this generation doesn't want to work. And I can totally speak to that in some regards. We can talk about work ethic, and we can talk about, wanting to put your best foot forward and show up to your job and let that be an impression of who you are and the kind of person you are and how you came up. I think a lot of today is sort of punch in, punch out. Your first day, you're worried about how many vacation days you can take, and that kind of, not that that's wrong. There's living to work and there's working to live, and some people find comfort in one way or the other, and there's nothing wrong with it, but it's definitely created challenges when you're when you're signing the other side of the check. When you're trying to build a company, when you're trying to put a product out, when you're I'm relying on people. There's 200 sets of hands that touch a premium cigar before it goes to your humidor. So you're relying on people, and I think that work ethic has definitely changed a little bit. And it's up to you whether that's for the better or worse. But
Yeah, I guess it's a big debate, right?
Yeah.
So we're kind of going back to, like you said, like, you learned, when you were like 12 years old at this junkyard, right? Like as a 12-year-old kid, like you mentioned the word like blue collar, and I'm sure you learned a lot of values
right.
during that time. Like what would you say, like what did you learn as a kid, as a 12-year-old kid? Like what did you learn then that you, like, we'll say, apply today?
I'll say it wasn't just, being in the junkyard. I was so fortunate that the way I grew up was like there was such a diverse offering to me of like lifestyles and ways of earning a living and ways of, becoming a man and learning different trades. Like, for example, we talked about the junkyard. We talked about being greasy and working at 5 a.m. And that kind of back-breaking work. And I love that. But I also grew up like understanding some of the other parts of life, and working in an office. And my father worked in government for many years, and I got this wealth of experiences really around the world of what people do and the difference between how people earn a living and what they consider to be success and failure, and what is work and what is not work. So being able to come up and have this like picture of 1,000 different lives, you know what I'm saying? I guess that doesn't really make sense, but my mother, my father were completely different people, both amazing people. I think I have the best mother in the world. And
Shout out to Mom.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's funny because you see people post all the time, happy birthday to my mother, the best mother in the world. And I would say that's very nice, but there can only be one best mother in the world. And I'm sure your mother is great. You know what I'm saying? But I have the best.
Yeah.
I have the best mother. So having that difference of growing up with my mother, who lives in Harrisburg, my father and my family who's up here, just being able to experience so many different things, I think that was the key to helping me figure out what I liked in life, what I placed value on. That was really important to me.
Yeah. So all right. So you talked about like kind of going. You had this experience. I'll say you said around the world in terms of seeing people's cultures and success and failures. Can you talk about that a little bit and like what you experience on both sides of that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of the best way to explain it. But basically, I don't know. What did I tell you about?
I guess more so it's just about success and failure. Like, how do you view success and failure?
Right. So I completely, I love nice things. I love, having nice fancy suits and eating steak dinners and all of those things. But I really place value on hard work. I'm actually much more comfortable in my work boots and my flannel shirt, working and doing something outside. And I tend to get a much greater sense of accomplishment from those kinds of things. So I've never looked at success as a measure of money or wealth. I think the wealthiest people I know are probably have the least amount of money in their bank account. You go to the Dominican Republic, you go to my factory in the Dominican Republic, and those people have nothing. I mean, they are living in one step above a shack. Many of them don't have cell phones, much less the latest iPhone. A lot of them don't have cars. Maybe they have a moped. When I tell you that they are the happiest people you could ever get to meet, I walk into the factory and they are concerned with, like, at the end of the shift, they want to sit down and have a cold Coca-Cola in a glass bottle. They want to have a cigar with you. They want to have a little bit of rum. They're not like, oh, it's 5 o'clock. I have to get out. I have to get to the bar. They love what they do. They don't have a lot, and they're so grateful for the things that they do have. And then you come home, And this literally happens every time I'm there. You come home and you see people who are so miserable that are driving around in their Mercedes-Benz, and they have the nicest, newest iPhone, and they have a Birkin purse, or they're driving a Ferrari. They are so miserable because they're trying to buy it, and their ideals of what makes success and what makes happiness are so skewed, in my opinion. I mean, you can't be a happy rich person unless you could be a happy poor person. And I think that is what I learned by coming up in so many different ways. Coming up being the kid in the political event in the suit and tie, and then the next morning being the kid in the junkyard picking up bolts off the ground and putting them in a bucket and adding them to the scrap pile. I think that was the most valuable lesson in learning all those different ways of living.
So you got to be the what'd you say, the happy poor person first.
Yeah, you have to be. You have to be. I look at, and I'll be honest with you, I struggle with these things every day. These things that I'm sitting here espousing to you, that these are the ways you should live. I mean, I only can do that because it's the shit that I'm dealing with every day. And not letting the world and the expectations that other people put on you and what other people think is fun or what you should be doing. I don't like sitting at a bar till 2 a.m. A lot of my friends do. And for years I thought that was what you had to do because that was what was fun, because they say that's what's fun, right? You get a little older and a little wiser, and you come to find out that half of those friends hate it too, but they were doing it because the other friends were doing it.
Right.
And that's kind of a roundabout way of what your question was. But I think you have to find, it's so cliche, you have to find yourself, and you have to appreciate the things that aren't necessarily about money. I try every morning, I love my cup of coffee. Like you may describe it a different way, but it's the same as like lighting a cigar. It's a romantic process. It's a ritual. And if I can't sit down and enjoy for 5 minutes the smell of the beans grinding, and that first sip of coffee, if I can't enjoy that in my old pickup truck, am I really going to enjoy it in my mansion? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You have to be able to appreciate the things that you have. Life is what's happening while you're busy making other plans. It's today. It's right now. So for me, a big thing has been learning how lucky we are just by being here. We were born in America. We're Americans. We're in this great country. We have so much, given to us, earned, whatever it is. Here we are. We're not worried about, are we going to eat tonight? And that stuff's going on all around the world, and those people can be happy, and we're having trouble being happy. Big lesson for me.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Like it really is. Like you said, like going back to the Dominican where your cigar factory is, like, like talk a little bit more about that culture, because I think it's so important. Like you said, like those people, like they basically have like you said, like nothing.
They have nothing. Their values are family, food, time. They really have that figured out. They take an immense amount of pride. This goes back to the work ethic that we talked about before, but they have so much pride in what they do. They show up to the factory. Now these cigar rollers, torsadors, they're one of the highest paid professions in the entire country of the Dominican Republic. They show up to work. They give it their all the whole day. And when 5 o'clock comes, you wouldn't know. Find me a business around here that you don't know when it's 5 o'clock. I mean, at 5 o'clock, they may become aware that the day is winding down. Now they're getting paid till 5 o'clock. That's it. They're finishing what they're doing. They're making sure that they don't cut corners on the last few cigars of the day. They used to talk about, like, if you're buying a new car, you better hope you don't buy the car they made on Friday afternoon or Monday morning, right?
Yeah, right.
And that's
right.
true.
Yeah. Scary.
It's scary. But these guys go in there and they give it their all, and everything, they're so passionate about what they do. There's so many lessons to learn from that. When they're done, they take another 20 minutes and they clean their station up. They get everything put away. They get everything ready for the next morning. And then they're still not running out the door because they value the relationships that they have with the other cigar rollers and with the people in charge in the factory. And they move over from their chair at their rolling table to the chairs on the side of the room, and they all sit down and smoke cigars together. And maybe somebody went and spent $1 and got a couple of Cokes or some Presidente beers, which is the big beer in the Dominican Republic.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's delicious.
Is it good?
Yeah, it's delicious. And I'm not a big beer drinker, but I
Okay.
mean, you're just part of it down there. You have to.
You have to like it, right?
Yeah, or drinking rum. And they'll sit there for another 2 hours, and they'll talk about their day, their work. They'll talk about their challenges. They all know each other's families. They go home, they have their dinner, and they come back with a smile on their face the next day. And then I go home, after being there for the week or whatever, and I get home and I'm like pissed off that, my food was cold at Chipotle, you know what I'm saying? Or something
Yeah.
totally stupid.
Yeah, that we shouldn't
my
be complaining
oil
about.
change was $120. Fuel is too expensive. Like I'm there, and again I say this because I try to be a student of what I'm saying. Is you find yourself so wrapped up in all this shit that doesn't matter, and there's so much out there to be absorbing and be happy with and happy about. That it's shocking. It happens every single time I'm in the Dominican Republic. I come home and it's like a whole new perspective. And then I'm here for a few months and I get totally wrapped up in all the crap.
So it's almost
that
like
I just talked
yeah.
about.
So it's almost like you go there, you appreciate
Right.
like what you have,
Yeah.
right? Because you're there and you're experiencing their life, right? And then you come back home, and then you're like, okay, but then you kind of fall back, like you said, and then you start, complaining and
Absolutely. And it's one of the reasons I love to travel so much. I love this area. I come from a big family. It's, my grandfather is the youngest of 17 children.
17.
17. And so family's everything. I love this area, but I totally understand why people don't love this area and why they want to get out. And I think that that's important. I mean, it's home for me, but I also get to travel. I get to go all over the world and do things for work. And it lets me learn about other people, other cultures. It lets me appreciate, what I maybe would be complaining about this area. You go to another area and you come home and you realize, it's not so bad. At least we have, good pizza. At least there's like things going on here.
Right.
At least, people have some values here. And there's parts of the country and parts of other countries that things are totally different. So I'm a big believer in perspective. And I think you really have to, on a daily, sometimes minute by minute basis, give yourself some perspective. Look at the thing that you're getting so wrapped up about. Look at the thing that's making you grip the steering wheel so hard, or make you snap off in a text message to somebody. Talk to yourself for a minute. Like, holy shit, I have a great life. I can do what I want. I can travel. I can go where I want. I have this amazing family. I have this amazing girlfriend. I have all these things going on, and I'm gonna let someone else's comment or email or whatever change my day. Like, why do we give people that power? Why do we give people the power to change our mood? And you can't help it. Sometimes I keep a really small circle, so I take the people in that small circle, I take everything they say probably way too seriously. I take it to heart, and you need that interaction with people. But when it comes to people you're dealing with on a daily basis at work, in an email, on a phone call, a client, whatever, letting yourself get so bent out of shape is, what's it doing? They win when they let you do that.
yeah, it's not worth it.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
It's not worth it.
Yeah.
All right, man. So you got a lot of passions, right? I guess we'll call them, right? So Besides the cigar business, you're an attorney.
Yes.
Yep. What else are you up to?
Well, I have, I'll tell you a little bit about the attorney thing. I never wanted to be an attorney. I never wanted to be an attorney in the traditional sense. So,
So you're a non-traditional attorney.
Non-traditional.
Oh, I'm excited to hear what this means.
It's not about. It was never for me about being in the courtroom necessarily, or handling divorces, or writing wills. I mean, that never really did it for me. But I have my father, Joe Peters, who started out as a street cop in Scranton, ended up going to law school, and spent some time in the courtroom. He was a federal mafia prosecutor in Philadelphia. But aside from that, after those prosecuting days, he went on to work in the White House, worked under 2 presidents, worked all over the world on counterterrorism and the drug issue. And I saw what being an attorney did for him in the non-traditional sense. I saw the ways that he was able to use it as a credential, as a door opener, as a way of thinking, not necessarily as a Joe Peters attorney at law kind of a thing. So having started a couple of businesses, there was always something in me that wanted that. I always kind of thought I might want to go to law school, but it was a big commitment, and I never really knew exactly how I would use it. So what I wound up doing was deciding I was getting older. I had graduated college a couple of years before, and I wanted to go to law school. Didn't really know how to do it because I had some businesses here. I couldn't afford to just close up everything and go be a full-time law student somewhere. So I found a law school in Harrisburg, Widener, that had a night program, and I would work here in Scranton all day. I would get in the car at like 3 p.m, drive to Harrisburg, sit in class from 5 to 10 at night, and then drive home, get up at 5 and go back to work the next day, and did that 3 to 4 nights a week for 4 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So,
but I love it.
Yeah.
And I remember your dad telling me this. I remember like years ago being out at a networking event, and I'm like, "Where's Max?" And he's like, "Max is in school."
Yeah.
I remember this.
It was.
I do.
It was the longest 4 years. I honestly, when I decided to do it, it was one of those things that it was, it's probably not going to work, but I'm the kind of person that hates having regrets. And I knew that at some point I was going to say to myself, you should have tried. You should have tried to make it work. You should have squeezed it in. So when I found the program and I was able to get in, the goal was really see if you can make it through a semester. It's the little victories, because in no way did I think not only was I going to make it through 4 years, but I'll never pass the bar exam. Like, that's for really smart people and like good studiers. I am the worst.
So you were just like,
studier.
hey, I'm just going to try to get through one semester.
Yeah, that was the goal. Let me just see if there's any way, maybe I'll do it for a semester and I'll realize this is what I love, and it'll motivate me to like want to sell a business and like go do law school full time. Or I'll do this for a semester and I'll be like, this is crazy. I knew I didn't want to be a lawyer. Why? And I would be able to put it to bed. And honestly, neither of those really happened. I didn't fall in love with the thought of being a lawyer when I started the first semester, but I also realized I could maybe do it a second semester. And, I was sure I failed every final exam. I looked at all my friends. They have color-coded notebooks and they have flashcards. And I had no idea what I was doing. It was a mess. And most of those people, they were in the night program too, but a lot of them still were if they were working at all, they were working part-time. So they had time. It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of studying.
And you're home in Scranton running multiple businesses.
Right. So there's really, it kind of got to the point of like, where is the time to read these cases? Like, you got 4 or 5 hours of reading to do before class. Well, I got up at 5. I'm at my lube shop, Max Lube, changing oil and car wash and doing all that stuff, getting the guys going and sending guys on seal coating jobs and paving jobs. And I got to be in my car by 3 o'clock, which is a challenge as it is, and get to Harrisburg. If I have time, I get to stop and see my mother, like take a quick shower. She would feed me. It would be like, this quick transaction. Thank God for her. And go sit in class where they would then quiz you on all the crap that you were supposed to read that day. That Socratic method of law school, which is basically hope you don't get called on because it's up to you to tell the class what is the theory that we're after here.
So did you read it?
No, I never read it.
I love this.
No, and it was
this is great. Did you get called on?
I got called on all the time, and the teachers, once they figured out that
that you weren't reading,
they would figure out that I was so busy there was really no way that I could be reading it. And I had I had a teacher tell me right when we started law school, they match you up with one of the professors who serves as your sort of academic advisor. And when you start, they have you in and they ask you, what do you do? How old are you? Where'd you go to school? What do you want to be as a lawyer? How do you see this going? And I kind of went in and laid it all out for this guy. Like, well, I have this business, and I work from this time to this time. And oh, by the way, all of that is happening 2 hours away. So I plan to be commuting back and forth every night. And
you're what, like in your late 20s at this point?
Yeah, I was probably
mid to late 20s.
Yeah, like 26 when I started. 25. Yeah, I graduated college in 2011, and I worked for a couple of years, and it was eating away at me. So I think I started 2014 was the first year. So I tell this professor, this advisor, everything, and he kind of stops and closes his folder and says, I've never told anybody this, but I feel like I'd be doing you a disservice if I gave you the usual spiel, which is, don't be worried. It's okay. Everyone's in this boat. You could do it. Everybody can do it. And he said, I don't know how. I don't think you can do it. I don't think law school is for you. And maybe it's for you, but it's not for you right now. And if you're not willing to sort of fold up your businesses or make some more of a commitment to be here, I think you're wasting your money, and I'd be doing you a disservice of telling you, rah, you could do it. And I, of course, walked out of that meeting and had my 2-hour drive home, pissed off. And
took it personally?
Yeah, took it personally, and all the things I just told you shouldn't do.
Right.
And, but it was also a motivator, and I think I love those stories. I love when I hear other people tell those stories, and it made me go for that second semester. It made me want to try to make it work. And to that professor's credit, on graduation day, comes up, not only gives me one of the legal awards for work that I did, but said, I never forgot what I told you 4 years ago. And I just want to shake your hand and tell you that I was wrong.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
and
cool.
He said, I think you impressed a lot of people here. And I don't think most of them knew all the stuff that you were doing. I knew because you told me in the very beginning. So to his credit, I mean, that's, and by the way, that was a guy who I couldn't, politically disagree with more. We were like at each other's throats every night in class.
So it took a lot for him to come up to you and say, I was wrong.
Yeah, so that kind of a person is like a big inspiration, and it's a good lesson that, all this nonsense of, well, if you believe this and I believe this, then we can't get along, we can't be friends, we can't, you're a jerk, I'm right, you're wrong. That's all just nonsense.
Yeah, what's up with that, by the way?
It's
I never really get into politics, and I won't.
Yeah.
But why can't people just put that stuff aside? And I mean, I could.
Yeah.
I know I could, but
Right.
there's certain people, I'm not going to mention any names or political parties.
Right.
But there's certain people that literally if they know that you're one side or the other, that's it. You're like
Right.
You're like the devil.
I'll say this. It's polarizing. And really it's not a lot of people, it's not their fault. I mean, it's the people who control that narrative, and whether you're a Newsmax, Fox News guy, or a CNN, MSNBC kind of guy or gal, they all do it. It happens on both sides. That political mind game crap of trying to control the narrative, and just if you think this, you're part of this camp, and if you think this, you're part of this camp, and oh, by the way, now that you've signed up for this camp, you have to now subscribe to all of these viewpoints on all of these issues. And, if your family or someone doesn't, they're evil. And you and I are probably politically different, but I don't think there's an issue that you and I couldn't sit down, light one of these cigars, talk about, and have an understanding. And
have a normal
you
conversation.
You might say, I feel this way on this social topic because of this. And I might say, I feel the opposite way. But you're going to explain to me why Bill Corcoran's life has led him to that belief. And I'm going to explain why Max Peters thinks the other way. Does that mean that your life experience was better or worse than mine, or more valuable, or right or wrong? I mean, that disagreement is literally the spice of life. And we're getting to this point of we can't offend. Like, when did it become a crime to offend somebody? When did words become, violence? And I get it. And I'm the most. It's funny for me to say this if you know me very well, because I hate when anyone feels awkward. Like, I don't want you to feel weird.
Yeah, or bad.
I'm like the guy who's trying to make sure you have everything you need. Right. But at the same time, should I be in jail because I said something you don't like? You know what I'm saying? Right. I called you the wrong name, or I said, I said that I believe something that you don't believe. I mean, it's just, those people should go to another country and realize, like, what real pain is, like what it means to not have food on the table at night. Like, you're worried about what words someone used in a tweet. I mean, that's what you're fired up about. That's the cross you're going to die on. You know what I'm saying?
That's pretty crazy.
And like, you're not worried about where you're getting your next meal. You're not worried about your whatever. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
it's just, I think we're getting a little carried away with feelings.
Yeah.
I don't. If my feelings weren't hurt growing up, like, I wouldn't be anywhere near as, I'm not saying I'm successful, but I'm pretty lucky, and I wouldn't be anywhere near where I am if people didn't piss me off, if they didn't hurt my feelings. That's part of life, and that's part of building character. And I don't know. I wish we could get a little more communication going on a lot of these things.
Yeah, totally, man. I 100% agree, because it's like, you feel like you have to like walk on eggshells all the time,
Completely. You're completely right, and so sometimes I just try to offend people a little bit and wake them up.
Yeah.
Sometimes I like to be the bad guy, Yeah.
All right. Well, going back to you talked about your dad having this experience and traveling all over the world, and the White House, and whatever else. Like, did you get to experience some of that with your dad?
Yeah. So I. So fortunate, lucky, he was able to bring me along, for a little while. I went to school in Washington, D.C. when he was living there. And when I wasn't going to school there, I got to spend my weekends there with him. And, being a little snot-nosed kid and getting to go into the White House and, eat corn on the cob with the president on the South Lawn. By the way, he worked under two presidents, President Clinton and President George W. Bush. So two completely different politically ascribed people, but nonetheless, two great experiences for me, and being able to go to things like state dinners and travel across the world. He sat on these counterterrorism committees that met all over the world, getting to meet people from every different country, culture, race, creed, great lessons in, like, we really are all the same. We come up different ways, but we all care about very similar things at our core. And, I was this lucky kid that got to go around and do all this stuff and meet all these people. And again, I mean, that's what we opened up talking about. But I really believe that it was all of those diverse experiences that allow you to figure out who you are. And I think everybody, if I'm ever blessed to have kids someday, like I want them to experience everything and figure out who they are, and I think too often everybody sort of stays in that bubble where they're comfortable. And a lot of that stuff that I did, like, it was uncomfortable. Like, I didn't want it. Sometimes I didn't want to be like the young kid in a suit and tie at some function in Berlin. You know what I'm saying? But when I look back at like that experience and what that gave me, and that now there's people that I still speak with and do business with, I think that ability to go to Dubai, I won a business competition in Dubai and was offered a full scholarship to get my MBA there, which I ended up not doing because it was the very fall that I was
going to say, everybody's wondering why you didn't take that.
I decided to start law school,
Oh, okay.
So I probably would have done that if the law school thing wasn't itching at me, but I'm just a big proponent of getting out of your comfort zone and experiencing something different. People get so nervous to do something they're not comfortable with, like to raise their hand and ask a question in a when there's a speaker, or to do public speaking, to do this.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
And I think to myself, all the times that I've screwed up, right? Or think to yourself, every time you've watched a podcast, every time you've watched someone public speak, you've heard people stumble, right? You've heard them make a mistake. You've heard it 100 times.
Yeah, you and I probably both stumbled
I've
3
probably
or 4
done
times
it 7
already.
times, yeah.
Yeah.
How many times do you remember seeing someone mess up?
Like
you
none.
don't. It's so inconsequential.
Yeah, unless somebody like craps their pants,
Right.
you're not remembering.
It's our own ego. Like, I'm worried that if I sit here and I stumble my words and say the wrong thing, or I get too nervous, I'm thinking like everybody's watching. Nobody really gives a shit.
Yeah, and
you know what I'm saying?
And you know what I always like tell myself, and just tell other people, just to offer like a little piece of advice, is like, when you're that person, when you're that guy, like front and center stage, right? It's all eyes on you, and you're talking,
Mm-hmm.
like everyone's looking at you right now, or everyone's looking at me like right now, and it's like the thing you have to think about as the person speaking, for people, looking for the piece of advice, is, majority of the people that are in that room, whether it's 5, 10, 50, or 500, majority of those people that are in the room right now watching you speak don't have the guts to get up there and do it themselves.
Absolutely. You're 100% right. Not only don't they have the guts to do it, but if you mess up, they probably aren't even going to catch it, remember it. They're probably worried about making their car payment on their phone or something stupid.
Right, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they're texting. They're in the back
they're
texting. Yeah. The only person that catches it really is you.
You. And that's good. I mean, you should be your own biggest critic. That's what life is about, developing and getting better. So it should bother you, and you should always be striving to be better, and all those things that you read on above people's doors, live, laugh, love, whatever. All those corny sayings.
Yeah.
Yes, you should
looked up
be.
here like I had one.
Right.
You were looking
sure,
above the
yeah.
door. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. I don't have one, by the way.
Like all that kitschy stuff. It's silly, but it's real. I mean, you have to make, these are conscious decisions that you have to make every day, with how you live your life and what you let affect you and who you let affect you, and making plans and taking action. There's so many great quotes by so many people who are so much smarter than me, but the ones that I love, they all boil down to take the step. You could sit here and think about why is it ever going to work out, or I hope someday I could do this, or look at you. You started this podcast. Started out with doing the photo shoots on the stacks. You didn't really know where it was going.
No clue.
Right? Something in you just wanted to have some kind of a finger in this stuff.
Yeah, it was just fun. It was
Right.
cool. It was fun. Other people took interest, like you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like people just took interest in it. I was just
And
like, this is cool.
So what did you do? You moved 2 pallets of paper, and you called Darren. You called Darren, and you had him come over and start taking some pictures. And now it's a couple years later, and we're in this awesome studio. You're building a new, awesomer studio,
Right.
And I have my name on the television, which is big,
Really proper, even.
yeah.
You know?
So you took the step, and it was a small step, and it moved into this, and I think it's perfect story. A perfect example of how you just got to do it.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate
Yeah,
it. Yeah, but no,
absolutely.
seriously, I totally, I couldn't agree with you more because it's.
And by the way, let me interview
Yeah.
the interviewer a little bit more.
Yeah, go ahead.
So
All right.
I read now
This is
that
rare.
you're part of this, the Times Leader.
Yeah.
Tell me about that deal a little bit.
All right, yeah. So Times Leader Media Group. So yeah, so I have a really great partnership with the Times Leader. So your face may appear on the front page when this episode comes out. By the way,
Right? No, they're trying to get readers, not get rid of them.
So basically, yeah. So I have a partnership with them. So the show, besides depending on where people listen or watch this show, it can also be watched and listened to on timesleader.com. So if you go to timesleader.com/onthestacks, you can watch and listen to any episode of the show on there. So
That's
we built out a custom page on their website, and like I said, you can for the people that I'll say like it's a whole new audience for me.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's a new experience
Right.
and new type of content and media for their readership. But yeah, so that's what it is. So we have that partnership where the show is also hosted in addition to everywhere else that you can listen and watch the show. It's also another streaming platform for my show. And then, like I said, it also appears. There's a little blurb on the front page of the Times Leader every week, the actual printed publication, which will have your name and/or maybe picture, depending on
Wow.
how much space we got that week. But
Need a lot for this big head.
yeah, I don't know if we'll fit it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'll see if we can maybe just like crop it like a little smaller or something.
That's
but,
all. That's a great accomplishment.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm really
Yeah.
proud of you. Proud to
Yeah.
be a part of this whole.
Yeah. And social media too. So like
Yeah.
we also do they do some social media stuff as part of the partnership as well. So, this episode will have like a little teaser like video that plays, sound bite / video, depends on how you're listening or consuming.
Mm-hmm.
And so they also publish on all their social media platforms every week too. They'll publish a little video clip of you saying some wise words, from
Wow.
Max Peters
Yeah.
will be shared across all their social platforms, as well as mine. But yeah, man, I think
Cool.
that covers it all.
Yeah,
I hope
it does,
I didn't miss anything.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I love it.
Thanks. So it's crazy, man. It's crazy where things go, and like you said, you don't know. You don't know unless you try.
Right.
And like you said, like thinking back, like did I ever think this would go anywhere? Absolutely not. Absolutely.
Speaking of trying, did you ever think that you would be the cigar band king of the Northeast?
No, I didn't.
Right?
Yeah.
No,
not that either. And you were the first guinea
Yeah,
pig.
that was, and I saw you had the Protocol guys in here.
did.
Great company,
Yeah,
great guys, great
absolutely.
friends of mine.
Love them.
Yeah, that was, I started the whole cigar business. It was just a passion. I love cigars. It really started as a hobby. I ended up meeting, I don't know if a lot of people don't realize this, but like Allentown area, Pennsylvania, is a major hub for cigars for the entire country. The biggest distribution centers are located right around there. So because of that, there's a lot of cigar shops too and retail spaces, and there's just a lot of people that smoke cigars. So I started going down in that area, going to cigar events, and I met a guy who now lives in Allentown because his family's here, but he was born and from the Dominican Republic, and he was the head roller for Opus X cigars, which are made by Fuente Company. They're highly regarded as like not only the best cigars in the world, but like the hardest to find, some of the most expensive. They're these amazing cigars. So I met this guy. We become great friends, Franklin, and he says, "Hey, Carlito Fuente, who owns Fuente Cigars,
Like the guy.
the most amazing cigar company in the world, is like he says he's like a father to me. He really helped me. I started working in the factory as a young teenager, and so I ended up going to the Dominican Republic with Franklin.
So wait, how did you meet him?
So we met at a cigar event,
like in Allentown.
in Allentown.
Just random event.
He was opening a cigar shop in Allentown, but we were at a different place. I think Famous Smokes, which is a big retail and big online distributor. we meet. He tells me about, what he did and how he rolled the Opus X cigar for 14 years or 15 years. I'm totally blown away because it's already one of my favorite cigars. He and I become friends. We start hanging out. I go down to his shop and we just talk about cigars. And after a while, he says, well, I'm going back to the Dominican Republic to see family and, mess with cigars and see what's going on back home. Why don't you come? So I went with him.
And at this point, did you have any plan to start your own brand? This was just like, hey, this would be a cool trip.
Max loves cigars.
Let's go to a factory.
Yeah, let's go check it out. Let's see what it's all about.
Okay.
All the stuff that I had no idea about. So I go with him, and I wind up getting to see different cigar factories, and especially the Fuente factory. Completely fall in love with the process. The people. The blending, the aging, the cultivation, all the farming. Totally love this whole process. And by the way, end up meeting Carlito Fuente.
First trip.
Get to go and meet him. And he and I just like hit it off. You get that opportunity with people a few times in your life. And I truly believe this was one of them for me. Just a total family-oriented kind of guy. We valued the same things, and he may be the billionaire mogul of cigars, and I may be the guy that is just likes lighting them up. But we were on such a same page with how we saw the world, and so he was very influential in helping me just come to know the business a little better and learn. And so, fast forward. Go back to the Dominican Republic a few times, just really fall in love with that whole process of how do you select tobacco? How do you grow it? How do you dry it? How do you ferment it? How do you age it? How do you blend it? That's really where the magic is. So I decide, I love this so much. Franklin, the guy who I originally went, he's back in Allentown and has his cigar shop. We start buying little amounts of tobacco and shipping it to Allentown and shipping it to his shop. And I would go down there after work. I'd drive an hour down and sit with him at night. And since he's such a great cigar roller, like he could take these different blends of tobaccos from different countries, different parts of the plant, sun-grown, shade-grown. He has this wealth of knowledge there too. And he would just roll them up for me to try, and I got to understand how different things worked together, worked well, usually didn't work well together, in the beginning. And so I decided, I want to do this. I want to try to, build. It still really wasn't meant to be a business. I just said I want to try to come up with what I think would be the best cigar. Cigars are like bourbon or wine in the sense that it's personal preference.
So you were just basically sort of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but trying to build something that you like.
Me. It's not the first time I've been accused of being selfish. So I just wanted...
I didn't say it.
I just wanted to understand it and build a cigar that I thought was the ultimate cigar. So I started to take it more seriously and bringing in more tobaccos. And it was, I say 3 years of just kind of messing around until I had something that was like, this is a cigar that I would give to you. This is a cigar that I would put my name on. And the people around me, my family, my father's a big cigar smoker, my grandfather, it was like, well, why don't you put your name on it? And really it wasn't meant to be a business, which is so funny because I'm the guy who looks at everything from a business sense. How do I make money?
How can I turn this into a business?
It really wasn't like that. And so that's what we did. We found a factory. I was blessed to, along the way, meet another friend of mine, Francisco Almonte, who owns a place called DBL, Dominican Big Leaguer Cigars. And we partnered up, and he allowed me to use space in his factory and work with his cigar rollers to be able to get this thing going. And it really was a completely organic process of coming to market with these cigars. And to this day, this Maximilian Ultra Premium cigar, it's never been, I keep my margins. If I charged the traditional model of cigars, if I price these cigars traditionally, they're like a $20 to $25 cigar. We sell them for like $12. And my margins are way less than probably anybody else in the cigar business. And that's simply because I never wanted this to be about money. I want people to be able to try it. Nobody wants to buy a $20 cigar for the first time that they've never heard anything about. You know, I'm not Carlito Fuente or the Padron
right. You don't have
family.
you don't have the name
or
and the reputation
Plasencia
yet.
I'm none of those people. We're a tiny little boutique company, and I wanted people to be able to try it, and I was proud of it. And it's just gone from there. It's blown up. I mean, I can't make the cigars fast enough. I still try to keep to the model of only selling them in places that I have either been to or know someone. I try to keep it really mostly at brick and mortar, mom and pop kind of retail locations. I think that's so important. You know, those are the people that support the industry. And there's something to be said about the big online catalog companies. They're great in the sense that they're responsible for getting a lot of people into cigars and getting people to try a lot of different cigars. But at the end of the day, it's the brick and mortar shops that are really supporting the industry and educating consumers about cigars, and they're really important to our brand. So
I just want to kind of go back to that, like you said, that first time that you met Carlos Fuente. I just think that's just so interesting, and just another like little, I don't know, just little interesting thing is the fact that, you know, you went there and you met him and he like gave you the time of day, and you probably never would have thought.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
here's a guy, you know, he's immensely powerful and popular and has this, you know, great, huge company that sells tens of millions or maybe even hundreds of millions of cigars a year.
Lots.
Just massive. And
he's talking to Max Peters.
Like, what do you need? How do we help you? You know, here's a guy that, if I'm in his shoes, I'm probably thinking, I don't want another guy in the business. And it really wasn't about me getting into the business when we talked or anything like that. But he was just such a huge inspiration in helping me understand what this business is really about. It's so unique, and I've had my fingers in a lot of different kinds of industries and businesses. There is nothing like this industry in the sense that people really do want to see you do well. You had the protocol guys in here. I push their cigars like I push my own. Find me another business. Like, the Ford guy doesn't tell you how great the Chevy lot down the street is. It just doesn't happen.
It's true, and it's so true. You're so right, because even when the protocol guys were here, I'm pretty sure they talked about you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's you're right in that. Like, you're not wrong. Like, in your industry, what I've noticed is that, like, just like you said, people will tell you to buy the competitor's product.
Right.
Yeah.
So here and then you take it. You know, there's me, tiny company, and protocol, still a small company, but, you know, great company. And then you have a guy like Carlito Fuente who is having the same conversations with you, you know, riding around in his armored Range Rover, you know, around the Dominican Republic, going to restaurants that, you know, he has a piece of. And it's like, but you're still having the same conversation about family. I mean, he's the same guy as the rollers that we talked about in the beginning of this show. The ones that don't care about what iPhone you have, don't care about what you're driving. They care about putting their best into what they're doing, which is making this single cigar. And Carlito is the same way. He just sees it on a scale of hundreds of millions of cigars, you know, but he's so down to earth as to what's important. And that's why we click so well. Proud to call him a really good friend.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That is an awesome story.
And it's not, I will say, and he would agree with me, it's like everybody in this business is like that. I've met probably all of the big manufacturers of cigars at some point or another, and there's none of them that would, maybe one or two, but most of all of them would try to go out of their way to help you get going in that business.
And they're all supportive.
Yeah, all supportive. They'll give you criticism. They'll tell you when something sucks if they think it sucks, but they'll also say, "This is great. You know, I wish I came up with this blend." You know, that's just great people in the industry.
Yeah, that's super cool, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, so like out of all the different things you do, like you got a lot going on, right? Like what's more like long-term mission goals? Like what's
So
the future look like for Max Peters?
Who knows? Like I'm trying to get
love
through
it.
tomorrow.
I'm trying to get through this episode first, right?
This is enjoyable, but what I have to go do after, like the work and the emails and all the parts of being a lawyer that I don't like doing, that's what I'm not looking forward to. The long-term goal is, short answer is I don't know. I know I have like ADD. I can't stand to do the same thing. So that's how being a lawyer has been great in a way. It's allowed me to continue doing a lot of the things that I enjoy doing, but in a new way, from a new lens. So all of the, I love cigars, but I can now represent cigar companies. So I can be a lawyer and I can also be working in cigars. I did some acting and some things when I was younger in Hollywood. I then had a production company, and my father and I still produce training videos for the federal government. We produced a feature film that won Best Picture awards. So I can do that stuff, but then I can also represent someone doing that on the entertainment side. So I love the ability to do 10 different things. The perfect day to me starts in a suit and ends in work boots, or vice versa. I could never say to you, I want to be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company and do that every day. And I could never say, I want to, run a tow truck every day. I love both of those things. I love the negotiating. I love being in the boardroom. I love that aspect of the mental game. But I also love turning wrenches and getting dirty and accomplishing something with your hands. So to me, the ultimate life is basically continuing what I'm doing and growing and finding new ways to stay involved, finding new ways to make money, and finding new ways to help people along the way. And that sounds cliche, but I think as you get a little bit older, I'm still a young guy, but you really start to appreciate what it's like to help somebody, to give somebody an experience that either you had as a younger person and valued, or that you didn't have and wished that you did. So that's becoming more and more of a priority to me.
It's a great perspective.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, so trying to think, going back to your acting days. I feel like I got to ask you about it, because I think I kind of knew this about you before coming in today, but I kind of did, but I kind of didn't, but I didn't really know exactly what you did. So
yeah, I'm mad I brought it up, because usually everyone brings it up, and I'm like, I'm glad when someone forgets to bring it up.
I almost forgot to bring it up.
It's so I was young and living in Washington D.C., and my father was working in the White House, so I was in the after-school program. School was done at 3, but there was like a 2-hour program till 5, and you kind of got to, throughout the school year, you got to pick different programs. So I did taekwondo and magic lessons and all these different things that they had to offer. One of which my father pushed for, was they had this etiquette class, which was like set a formal place setting and ballroom dancing.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. So at the time, I'm like, oh, it's just a bunch of girls, like I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
The lady who taught this class was she was an acting coach that used to live in Los Angeles. And long story short, she asked if I would be interested, asked my father, if I would be interested in taking some acting lessons, because we were doing some interactions and stuff in this etiquette class. And I'm sure my father thought he was getting fleeced. Like, this lady's like, oh, I really see something in your son. Would you like to sign him up?
He's got a talent. Yeah,
$100 lessons 3 times a week and whatever it was. So we do, and I start taking these acting classes, and she had a contact, a friend of hers in Los Angeles, who was a premier agent, child agent. And after she would coach students in DC for a year or 2, she would film them, put them on tape, and send that tape as like a package, a demo, out to her agent friend, and he would review the 30 kids and, oh, this one's got some promise, work with him a little. So I had only been with her for, maybe a month. Maybe we went 3 or 4 sessions. And it was that time of year where she sends that tape out. This is still VHS in those days. She sends that tape out to her friend. So she throws me on the end of the tape, and the guy calls her and he says, "I want to meet this guy. I want to meet this kid." So I literally flew out to Los Angeles on a Friday after school with my father, and through that weekend met with this agent. He was like, "I want to sign you." Signed with an agent, signed with a manager, went back home, got all my affairs in order with school and everything, moved out to Los Angeles. I think at that point, the hope was sort of, get your feet wet. There's a couple months in those times before reality shows became so big. There was a couple months called pilot season, like February and March, and that's where they filmed all the new shows for the year. And so I moved out there, and I think the hope was get your feet wet. Maybe we could get you an audition or two, and you could see if you really like this industry, maybe you want to be an actor. Well, I go out and I start getting auditions, and I just start booking roles. And some of them were really cool roles, like being on 6 Feet Under on HBO, which was the #1 show on cable at the time. And sitcoms on ABC, made-for-TV movies. I mean, I started booking all these roles, and it was like this whirlwind. Here I am, 12 years old with 2 assistants, and Paramount Studios is sending a car for you every morning, and your name on the door. It was an amazing experience. So I did that for a while, and I think to this day, I've sort of always planned on getting back to that. I loved it so much. I came home. That season ended, and came home, and the school was kind of pissed because they didn't like that I was gone for so long. They had to send me packets of work in FedEx envelopes every week. So I kind of, thought, well, it's not going to work this year, so let's just get done, and then next year we'll do it. And then next year we'll do it. And then it just never happened. I ended up starting businesses and just was here and never ended up going back and closing that chapter. And I would say, we talked about not having any regrets. I mean, that is the one chapter that's still kind of not finished. So,
but at least
who knows?
But at least you were already in it though,
right?
Enough that at least you can say at least it's not somebody who was I really want to be an actor, and say they're 40 years old and they just never did it. Yeah. You at least
did it, and I didn't go back that next year, and that was right when reality shows became so big. So that killed episodic television. There was none of the drama shows they just stopped. They all got canceled because everything was about Survivor and American Idol. I mean, if you remember those days, that became everything. And life gets in the way. And you're right. It's a great way to look at it. I did it. I always have that.
But maybe there's a Netflix special.
Maybe there's a Netflix special. And I've actually managed, because I do like that so much. I love entertainment and production. I've been able to stay sometimes behind the camera and find ways to still do what I enjoy. Awesome.
You've done a lot, man. I think you've done probably more in your, what are you, 33 years old?
I just turned 33.
Yeah. I think you've done more in your 33 years than most people will ever do in their whole life.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I know you mean that as a compliment, and I take it that way. I'm totally lucky, and I think I owe a lot of it to sort of just being eyes wide open and willing to accept all of that stuff. I think there's a lot of opportunity for people that think they don't have it. I mean, you can throw yourself out there and do something different tomorrow. And I'm still that guy. I'm still that guy that walks into the room that I'm kind of interested in but know nothing about, and want to know everything about it. I want to dive right in. I'm out. I remember printing labels here, and I was breathing down the neck of the guy running the old Heidelberg presses, right. And I'm I wonder if I could buy one of these and do this in my basement.
How can I do this?
Yeah. So but that's just you have to put yourself out there.
100% agree. All right, so where can our listeners and viewers buy your cigars if they're so inclined to try?
So we are Maximilian Ultra Premium Cigars, Maximilian Cigars on Instagram, Maximilian Ultra Premium Cigars on Facebook. I would say that the best thing to do is get in touch with us, and we can tell you what the retail stores closest to you are that carry the cigars. But there are online companies that we do work with, Best Cigar Prices, in Drums, PA. They ship nationwide. They have been, I would say this, traditionally a boutique, tiny company like mine really can't afford to do business with any of the big catalog stores. Best Cigar Prices has been different in that regard because they've allowed me to, they honor like my pricing on the cigars. Basically what that means is they don't undercut the brick and mortar stores. They have their ways of saving you money and shipping you cigars for free. But they don't piss off as many of the brick and mortar stores who are trying to sell your cigars at, MSRP. And then you have some of these big online companies that come up, they buy up all your cigars and then they blow them out the door 40% off. If I'm a little company like that, I can't ask the brick and mortar stores to sell my cigars. They're not going to lay out that investment when the consumer can, that's a great looking cigar. I think I'll go home, go online and buy it cheaper. So aside from Best Cigar, they've been excellent at like honoring our pricing and it just allowed us to be available nationwide now. But other than that, I say check out local brick and mortar stores, the mom and pop shops. That's where you're going to learn about cigars. Cigars, I love to smoke a cigar alone, but I really love to smoke a cigar with people, and especially somebody that I don't know. And it's a great equalizer. You walk into a cigar bar, you're going to find every kind of different person. You're going to find the Chippewa boots and the Ferragamo loafers, and everyone's going to be having a conversation and be completely equal. And I love that. So, again, contact me if you want to know what stores are close to you. Other than that, go online, search for them. They'll probably pop up.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. I love it. This was fun. I'm glad we reconnected for part 2 of your On the Stacks appearance, officially on the podcast now, of course.
Yeah.
So
it's great.
This is great, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. Max Peters, On the Stacks podcast in the Blue Door studio. Thanks for joining me.
Great time.